Schrodinger's cat. If you haven't already subscribed, click the link on the right below and click the notification bell, and then you'll be informed when I upload new content. In this video we're going to talk about Erwin Schrödinger, and we're going to delve into quantum mechanics. It's on the back of the previous video, which was Ultimate Reality, so you may want to watch that first, although the two can be watched in isolation. Erwin Schrödinger was a quantum physicist in the turn of the century, the 20th century. And he is most famous for the Schrodinger equation, which provides a way to calculate the wave function of a system and also how it changes dynamically over time. And this was a groundbreaking equation. It changed the face of quantum theory, and in 1933 Schrödinger won the Nobel Prize in physics. I'm going to move on and talk about his metaphysical ideas of consciousness and how that connects to, forms a part of, or is integral to the world of quantum mechanics. So quantum theory deals with subatomic particles and how they interact and what that world looks like in terms of the mathematics, i.e. Schrodinger's equation, the wave function, but also in terms of how it behaves and the implications that has upon the conscious observer. We'll get onto that a little bit later on, where I will quote some of Erwin Schrodinger's metaphysical statements, which tie in very nicely to the non-dual perspective, the Advaita Vedanta, all is one. So the prevailing theory in quantum mechanics is called the Copenhagen Interpretation. And this is a collection of views principally attributed to Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg. And I'm going to tell you what the Copenhagen Interpretation is, and then I'm going to try to explain it in terms of a simple analogy that might help you understand it better for those who aren't familiar with the terms. So, the quantum theory, the best understanding of it, the most prevalent, both at the turn of the century, the 20th century, and now, still, I would argue, is the Copenhagen Interpretation. And this says that a quantum system stays in a state of superposition until it interacts with or is observed by the external world. When that happens, the superposition collapses into one or another possible definite states. Now, let me try to give an analogy for what that interpretation is saying, because it has profound effects on our understanding of what's going on at the subatomic world, at the subatomic level, and that is at the level of particles that are smaller than or within an atom. So if you imagine a metal box, and inside the box there is a coin, and the coin spins. Now this coin doesn't have a heads or tails, it has two sides that are flat, but one side is blue and the other side is yellow. And let us suppose that this spinning coin continually spins forever until it is disturbed. So we can't see in the box and we can't see the coin, but the coin is spinning. And we can say that the coin is in a superposition. And we could say that if and when the coin falls, that superposition has collapsed into one or other of the possible states. And those two states would be, for the coin, blue side up or yellow side up. But until we observe it, it is in a state of superposition, which means that it is neither resting blue side up or yellow side up, it is spinning. And in fact, the blue and yellow blur, and we can call it green. So the green is an idea, an analogy for the indeterminate nature of that coin. It isn't at rest, we can't measure it, we don't know whether it's flat blue or flat with yellow facing upwards. It is spinning, and it is a blur of the blue and the yellow, giving an overall green. Now, to find out what's happening inside the box, we have to observe it, and imagine a door on the side of the metal box. We open the door, but the door opens inwards, so as soon as we open the door, it disturbs the coin and the coin falls, and we can then observe it, and we can see that it is lying flat and it is blue side up, or it is lying flat and it is yellow side up. But the key here is that we can't measure the position of the coin until we observe it, and in observing it we bring about the collapse of that superposition into one or other definite positions. So the positions are either blue side up or yellow side up. So the subatomic world is a cloud of probabilities and possibilities based on Schrodinger's wave function. There aren't things, there aren't particles that can be known and measured definitively. But when we look at that world, when we observe it or we measure it with equipment, then the world appears as one thing or another. It collapses its state and becomes a reality that can be measured. But prior to observing it, and this is where consciousness can come in, and we'll come on to that in a minute, prior to the observation of that quantum world, it is in a superposition, all possible states. It is the blur of the green coin spinning without a definite position, without a definite blue or yellow face that can be measured. It is indeterminate. It is a cloud of probability. And this is the very fundamental ground of the so-called materialist physical world. But when we go into that world of quantum theory and quantum mechanics, we don't see matter, we see probability. And not only that, we see that conscious awareness or observation of what is happening produces the reality, the measurement. It's not as though the material world at the subatomic level is lying in wait for us to see it. It only becomes apparent when we consciously try to look or measure. And this is the bizarre nature of the quantum world. And so now we come to Schrodinger's cat. So Erwin Schrödinger described how, in principle, you could create a superposition in a large-scale system. So that's similar to the analogy I gave with the spinning coin. But in his analogy, he made this system dependent upon a quantum particle that was in superposition. So what he proposed was a cat in a locked steel chamber, wherein the cat's life or death depended upon the state of the radioactive atom. That is, whether it had decayed and emitted radiation or not. According to Schrodinger, the Copenhagen interpretation implies that the cat remains both alive and dead until the state of that internal world has been observed externally. Now, Schrodinger wasn't trying to promote the idea of a dead and alive cat as a serious possibility. Actually, what he intended by this analogy was to illustrate the absurdity of the existing view of quantum mechanics, the Copenhagen interpretation. Nevertheless, that interpretation does remain the prevalent one to this day. And so, I said that I would give some quotes from Erwin Schrödinger on the metaphysical nature of what's going on at that quantum level. And I'm going to read some of these now. I've got them printed out here. Consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms, for consciousness is absolutely fundamental. It cannot be accounted for in terms of anything else. Careful analysis of the process of observation in atomic physics has shown that the subatomic particles have no meaning as isolated entities, but can only be understood as interconnections between the preparation of an experiment and the subsequent measurement. What we observe as material bodies and forces are nothing but shapes and variations on the structure of space. You and all other conscious beings as such are all in all. Hence, this life of yours which you are living is not merely a piece of the entire existence, but is, in a certain sense, the whole. Quantum physics thus reveals a basic oneness of the universe. And perhaps I might finish with Nisargadatta Maharaj's statement that I made in the previous video, which I think is apt at this stage because it ties in the non-dual awareness, the perennial wisdom, with some of the sentiments of Erwin Schrodinger's in those previous quotations, and that is the world that you perceive, what you call matter, is consciousness itself.